Inflammation and healing. You probably know someone who has spent thousands of dollars on physical therapy and ice baths, completely unaware that there's a compound designed specifically to accelerate the repair of connective tissue on a cellular level. That compound is BPC-157, short for body protection compound, and it has become one of the best-known peptides for joint pain, tendon injuries, ligament damage, and gut repair. The reason it gets so much attention is that it appears to support tissue healing, where your body is already trying to repair damage, especially in places that heal slowly and annoy you for months. Tendons and ligaments are the worst for this because they don't get rich blood flow, so recovery drags on forever while you pretend stretching will solve it. BPC-157 is thought to help by supporting blood vessel formation, cell signaling involved in repair, and the restoration of damaged tissue lining, especially in the gut and connective tissue. That is why you keep seeing it attached to everything from nagging elbow pain to leaky gut to chronic inflammation. In peptide culture, BPC-157 is usually the first name that comes up when someone wants to heal faster. And honestly, that reputation did not appear out of nowhere. Full body recovery. There's a chemical combination so effective at clearing systemic inflammation that the biohacking community literally named it after an X-Men character, which sounds absurd until you see how well it actually works. TB500 is the second half of that story, and unlike BPC-157, which is usually talked about for more localized healing, TB500 gets framed as the full-body recovery peptide. It's a synthetic version of a fragment from thymosin beta-4, a naturally occurring peptide involved in tissue repair, cell movement, and recovery from injury. The appeal is pretty obvious. If BPC-157 is the one people reach for when one thing hurts, TB500 is the one they reach for when everything hurts. It's thought to help by improving cell migration and repair processes throughout the body, which is why it keeps getting mentioned for muscle recovery, inflammation, mobility, and post-injury healing. Combine it with BPC-157 and you get the so-called Wolverine stack, which is what people use when "my shoulder is wrecked" turns into "actually, my entire body feels 40 years older than it should." They didn't name it after a mutant just because it sounds cool. They named it that because when everything finally stops hurting, you feel practically indestructible. Cognitive focus. If you've ever stared blankly at a screen, wishing there was a switch to force your brain to just pay attention, it turns out that switch exists. It was originally developed in Russia, and people refer to it as the limitless pill. That peptide is Cmax, and its whole reputation is built around focus, mental clarity, and getting rid of that sluggish, fogged-over feeling that makes basic tasks feel extremely difficult. It's often described as a nootropic peptide, which just means people use it because they think it helps their brain work better. Cmax is believed to influence brain signaling tied to attention and learning, and it's also been associated with things like BDNF, a growth factor linked to brain plasticity and cognitive performance. You don't need to memorize the acronym. The practical point is that people take it because they want sharper focus, better productivity, and less brain fog without feeling like they just licked a battery. That's why calling it the limitless peptide works so well. It delivers the one tool modern adults are desperate for: the ability to sit down and actually finish a single task without picking up your phone to check an app you just closed 10 seconds ago. Anxiety and mood. Most people accept that chemically turning off anxiety means walking around in a slightly sedated, zombie-like haze, but there's a specific compound built to stabilize your mood while leaving you completely awake and functional. Cellank is usually introduced as Cmax's calmer sibling. Where Cmax gets the focus label, Cellank gets the anxiety and mood label because it's used for taking the edge off without the usual flattened, dulled feeling tied to traditional anti-anxiety drugs. That alone explains why it stands out. Plenty of people would love to feel less anxious without also feeling half dead. It's believed that Cellank may influence neurotransmitter systems tied to stress and emotional regulation, especially pathways involving GABA and serotonin. You don't need a degree in neurochemistry to understand the appeal. The selling point is simple: calmer mood, lower anxiety, clearer head, and no sedation. For anyone whose nervous system acts like every email is a medical emergency, that pitch sounds like an actual miracle. Muscle growth. Stabbing yourself with synthetic hormones to build muscle is a great way to destroy your endocrine system, which is why the actual gold standard right now is tricking your body into producing massive amounts of its own growth hormone naturally. That's where the Tesamorelin and CJC-1295 stack comes in. They're almost always paired together because they tag team your pituitary gland. CJC-1295 basically tells your brain to manufacture more growth hormone, and ipamorelin acts as the trigger to release it into the bloodstream. Working together, they create the perfect environment for faster recovery and building lean muscle without the nasty side effects of older synthetic hormones. That combination is why this stack keeps showing up in muscle-building conversations. You aren't injecting some illegal black market steroid that's going to shrink your organs and give you back acne. It's just a way to get your own body to turn the dial up on repair, recovery, and muscle gain. Which, to be honest, sounds a lot more elegant than the usual gym strategy of caffeine, denial, and a herniated disc. Belly fat. You can run on a treadmill until your knees give out, but that stubborn layer around your midsection is biologically programmed to ignore cardio, unless you target it with a compound designed specifically for visceral fat. That compound is Tesamorelin, and its claim to fame is visceral fat reduction. That's the dense fat packed around your organs that gives your waistline that distended look people hate. It's the kind of fat that makes you think, I lost weight, so why do I still look like this? Tesamorelin works by stimulating growth hormone release through the GHK-Cu pathway, and that seems to reduce visceral adipose tissue more specifically than the usual blunt force fat loss options. That targeted effect is the whole reason it stands out. It's one of the few peptides in this space attached to a very specific body fat problem rather than vague promises about losing weight. After all, belly fat isn't an abstract idea, it's personal. Total weight loss. The science on weight loss is moving so ridiculously fast that the drugs everyone was obsessing over last year are already getting upgraded. Enter retatrutide. While older drugs just tell your brain you're full, this one hits 3 different pathways in your body at once. It shuts down your appetite, manages your blood sugar, and actually forces your body to burn more energy. If tesamorelin is the specialist for your gut, retatrutide is the aggressive, full-body overhaul. To understand why it's so aggressive, you have to look at those 3 pathways. The first 2 are GLP-1 and GIP. These are the ones that talk to your brain and your stomach, basically making you feel completely stuffed after eating half a sandwich. The third pathway, glucagon, is the game changer. That's the signal that actually tells your body to stop hoarding energy and start burning through your stored fat. When you combine all 3, you aren't just eating less, your engine is running hotter. But there's a massive catch with something this powerful. When your body drops total weight this fast, it doesn't care what it burns. It will absolutely chew through your muscle mass right alongside the fat if you let it. You can't take a sledgehammer like this and just sit on the couch eating saltines. If you aren't actively lifting weights and forcing protein into your system, you aren't just going to lose fat, you're going to end up completely deflated. It's an incredibly powerful tool, but you have to respect what it's actually doing to your biology. Fat burning. If completely nuking your appetite or feeling mildly nauseous all day doesn't sound like fun to you, there is a specific peptide designed to help you burn fat while actually letting you enjoy your food. That peptide is AOD9604, and it operates as the exact opposite of a sledgehammer like retatrutide. While those heavier GLP-1 and triple agonist options completely take over your hunger pathways and force you to eat less, AOD9604 bypasses the brain and the stomach entirely. It's derived directly from a specific segment of human growth hormone. When it enters the system, it goes straight to the fat cells. It actively pushes fat breakdown through a biological pathway called lipolysis and simultaneously limits new fat storage through lipogenesis. It doesn't trick your brain into thinking you're full, and it doesn't slow down your digestion to the point of constant nausea. It just targets the fat directly. That contrast is exactly why AOD9604 stands out. It answers a very specific biological complaint. I want less body fat, but I would also like to eat dinner like a functioning member of society. Anti-aging. We spend billions on creams and serums trying to look 25 again, completely ignoring the fact that physical aging is just the symptom of your body's natural human growth hormone quietly shutting down. Tesamorelin sits right in that anti-aging lane because it's used to stimulate your own growth hormone production rather than replacing it outright. That's why clinics pitch it for vitality, recovery, better sleep, and feeling younger. By feeling younger, they mean waking up without your joints hurting for absolutely no reason and not groaning every time you have to stand up from a chair. On a biological level, it acts like a master key. Instead of just pumping synthetic hormones into your blood, tesamorelin signals your pituitary gland to produce more of its own supply in a completely natural way. You aren't overwriting your biology, you're just waking it back up. While the anti-aging label usually means you are getting scammed by an expensive moisturizer, Tesamorelin actually makes biological sense. It attacks the root cause of the breakdown instead of just patching over the symptoms. Skin and hair. Losing your hair and watching your skin lose elasticity feels like watching an unstoppable biological clock. But there's a vanity compound people are using to forcibly rebuild collagen from the outside in. That compound is GHK-Cu, the copper peptide that shows up everywhere the second you start looking into getting rid of wrinkles or fixing thinning hair. Unlike a lot of the peptides in this video, this one has a very obvious superficial appeal. You use it because you want your face, skin, and hair to stop betraying you in mirrors with harsh lighting. GHK-Cu triggers your body to increase its own collagen production and helps rebuild the structure of your skin. You'll usually see it sold as topical serums, injectables, or included in whatever painful microneedling torture med spas want to put you through. It also creates a healthier environment for your scalp and hair follicles, so the hair you have actually stays on your head instead of clogging the shower drain. Compared to the rest of the peptides on this list, this one's pure vanity. But if a copper peptide is the difference between looking your age and looking 10 years younger, nobody's going to complain. Energy and stamina. The ultimate human fantasy has always been getting the physiological results of an intense workout without actually having to put running shoes on. A specific mitochondrial peptide might actually do just that. This brings us to MOTS-c, which is described as an exercise mimetic because it triggers the same metabolic systems that get activated by physical training. What that means for your body is better stamina, better metabolic efficiency, and more energy output from the machinery inside your cells. It essentially gives your body the biological rewards of working out without having to go to the gym. MOTS-c is mitochondrial derived, meaning it operates directly inside the powerhouse of the cell. Sooner or later, that useless fact from 7th grade biology had to pay off. It regulates how your body uses fuel, handles glucose, and sustains physical endurance under severe metabolic stress. It isn't a cheap stimulant flooding your nervous system to make you feel temporarily awake. It's a fundamental upgrade to how your body generates energy at the cellular level. For anyone who wants to power through harder workouts, avoid the 3 p.m. crash, or convince themselves they actually enjoy running, MOTS-c makes immediate, intuitive sense. The fountain of youth. Tech billionaires are currently pouring fortunes into compounds meant to reverse cellular aging and repair DNA, and the most popular one sitting in modern wellness clinics is not even technically a peptide. That compound is NAD+, and it belongs in this list because it dominates peptide clinic culture, even though it is technically a coenzyme. The reason people rave about it isn't cellular energy as a vague slogan someone once printed on a brochure. It's longevity, vitality, sharper memory, healthier aging, and the fantasy of turning back the biological clock before your body submits a formal complaint. NAD+ is central to energy metabolism and is used by systems involved in DNA repair, stress response, and cellular maintenance. Once NAD+ levels decline with age, your body gets worse at handling cellular damage and metabolic stress. Because it actively replaces the exact compound your body uses to fight off physical deterioration, clinics market NAD+ as the ultimate fountain of youth. It won't actually make you immortal, but out of everything on this list, it's the closest thing your cells have to an instruction manual for how not to die quite so fast. Sexual function. The vast majority of libido drugs simply force blood flow to a specific area and hope for the best, completely bypassing the actual nervous system reboot required to make someone genuinely want to have sex. PT-141 gets attention because it works on desire in the brain rather than just mechanics in the body. That's a major difference. Traditional erectile drugs focus on circulation. PT-141 bypasses the blood vessels and directly triggers the melanocortin pathways in the brain that control sexual arousal. Because it targets the neurological root of that drive instead of just the plumbing, it works equally well for both men and women. Of course, there's always a trade-off. The little blue pills famously cause headaches and severe facial flushing, and PT-141 carries a notorious reputation for causing a wave of intense nausea right after you take it. The fact that people are willingly signing up for a headache or a stomachache just to flip the switch on their own libido tells you exactly how desperate this market is. Nothing sets the mood for a romantic evening quite like fighting the urge to throw up. Sleep. Millions of people just accept chronic insomnia as a side effect of modern life, completely unaware that there's a compound specifically designed to force your system into deep, restorative delta wave sleep. It's called DSIP, short for Delta Sleep-Inducing Peptide, and the name tells you exactly what people want from it. They do not want better bedtime hygiene. They want their brain to shut up. DSIP is a sleep regulation peptide designed to help the nervous system move into deeper, more restorative sleep states, especially the delta wave phase tied to real physical recovery. That's why it has a different appeal from generic supplements like magnesium or melatonin. It's not just mild relaxation, it's deep sleep with actual restorative value. That sells because insomnia is not a small problem. It wrecks mood, memory, energy, appetite, recovery, and sanity one terrible night at a time. All of these peptides sound incredibly promising, and they probably have massive potential. But reality is, the majority of them have yet to be proven in large-scale human trials. We still have to wait for the research to catch up to the hype and tell us what the long-term risks really look like. If you decide to skip the wait and test them out on yourself, just remember that the guinea pig is you.